So I'm starting here with some work I've done with Mosby. This is Advent of Code 2016, Day 4. It involves taking a bunch of scrambled, jumbled letters and doing some frequency analysis on them. So what I'm doing here is I'm trying to break up this string using the split function on the minus signs, and then further breaking that last block, square brackets in it, and split that into two different pieces. In the context of the problem, this is the encrypted message. The last part is the section ID, and then the second to last part is our checksum. So here I'm going through and taking all the string slicing work I did with Mosby, giving all those variables good names, and checking out with a nice print statement that I've actually managed to find all the pieces I wanted. So here I'm going to take that function I just wrote and actually make it a function. That way I can import it into my local Python REPL and just run some data through it and make sure that it actually is behaving the way I think it should. This is a technique I picked up from George Campbell when he was teaching me how to do Advent of Code stuff a couple years back. There's a Python class in the collections library called default dictionary, default dict. And the important part is you can just define a value for any undefined key in a dictionary. So instead of raising a key error if you try to talk about a key that doesn't exist, it just assumes that that key has a default value of whatever you define it. Here, because I'm going to be counting things, I make it an integer value of 0. And that's enough to get me counting frequency. Now I can loop through the characters in my encrypted string, and for each one I will just increment the value of that key in the default dictionary, and I don't have to do a check to figure out if this is the first time I've seen a Q or not, because default dictionary means that every dictionary starts with a default value of 0. And there, for at least my sample line that I'm going through, I can get the value and frequency of every letter. So the puzzle is about trying to find the 5 most frequent letters, then using alphabetical order to break ties. Remember that, because I'm going to forget it. So this is where I knew I needed to sort a dictionary, and I didn't quite know how to do that. I know how to sort a list. So I went and read about it, and I found the function sorted. Now sorted takes any Python iterable, of which a dictionary's items is one. And for the second part of the function, you just need a function that will produce some aspect of that dictionary that is sortable. In this case, I'm going to use numbers, which integers are well sorted. The problem asks me to find the 5 most frequent letters. The sorted normally gives things in the least to greatest order, so I'm going to reverse it. This is a mistake. So I'm reversing to find the 5 most frequent, and then I'm going to slice off those 5 using just a string slice, and I'm going to call those things top. And I get a number. I get an answer, and it doesn't work. This is where I go back to read the problem, and I realize that I have not been using alphabetical order as a tiebreaker. I was either sorting all of them alphabetically, or I was just taking them in the frequency list. I need to do something different. And so I had to Chatcraft. This is a great example of when I think it's appropriate to turn to a large language model. I have an idea. I find that by writing out and expressing exactly what my confusion is, that often gets me closer than I would otherwise. Typing out my confusion and then asking the large language model with that text is really effective. So what I need to do is perform 2 sorts. I need to sort by the most frequent numbers, the highest values, as I've been doing. But then once I do that, I need to sort alphabetically by the keys. I need to sort so I get the A's and the E's first before the P's and the Q's. And here's where Chatcraft tells me the thing I could have gotten by reading the documentation, which is that the sorted function can use a tuple to give a hierarchical sort. So as long as I have 2 values in the tuple, it will sort first by the first value and then second by the second value. So now I go back and modify my sorting function that pulls an item out of the dictionary. Instead of just pulling out item 1, I'm going to pull out item 1 and take it negative, so it does the reverse for me. And then if those tie, I look at item 0. Now I'm doing both parts of the problem in one sort function, so I can just run it and check my output and move on to problem 2. Because of course, all Advent of Code problems actually have 2 parts. The second problem asks me to use the sector number as a cipher key to unencrypt the original block of text. So shift ciphers involve using some modulo arithmetic, generally modulo 26, because that's how many letters are in the alphabet. So whatever the number is, I'm going to add that to the current letter position. So if it's M, that's 13. I add that big number, take it mod 26, and then I use the ASCII lowercase letters that I import from string to figure out what letter is in that position. So look at the letter, shift it, find the new letter, add that to the new translated message. And look, that's not the value that I was supposed to find, but it's certainly legible English text. So maybe I can go find the one that's talking about the North Pole. A little bit of time moving from my code that I was writing in the REPL back into my program. Make sure that I can print out and see a lot of text. And then I'm going to look for only the ones that involve the word north and the word pole. And the answer for this is the sector ID number. So that's why I'm going to print that out. Ta-da.